Welcome to CyberSecurity Awareness TV, episode 369 for October 2nd, 2021. My name is Mac Jackson Jr., your cybersecurity consultant. If this is the first time you've seen the show, I on this show discuss cybersecurity news, awareness, and interviews with experts regarding cybersecurity awareness mitigation and protection. Protection, folks, against the fastest growing crimes of the 21st century. Folks, I want to thank you all for being a part of our show here at CyberSecurity Awareness TV, and those of you who helped us out in our show and supported us, and those of you who have sent us information regarding cybersecurity issues that you have run across that we have researched for you. If you'd like to support us, folks, to continue doing this, you can find us at MacJacksonJr.com. That's MacJacksonJr.com. And folks, remember to share, like, and subscribe to CyberSecurity Awareness TV on all social medias. In today's show, we're talking cyber news. We have an interview that we're going to replay regarding how businesses are fighting against cyber attacks. What are they doing? Are manufacturers investing in their software and hardware to make sure that our data is protected from the cyber hackers? We're going to hear it from firsthand from Brad Smith, president of Microsoft. In our second segment, we're going to talk to one of the most infamous cyber hackers that started this whole cyber hacking attack back in the 90s, and now he is a renowned cybersecurity consultant that helps businesses and government. That's right, folks, that's Kevin Mitnick. We will discuss ransomware attacks and how it affects us globally. In our third segment, we're going to talk about cybersecurity tips, folks, things that you could do to protect yourself from the threats of cyber attacks. In our first segment, cyber news. Cyber attacks affect businesses and individuals around the world. The threats are on the rise. This happened by users clicking on an email or maybe getting a text message on their phone that they're not aware of, that cyber hackers use to try to get into their systems to steal and acquire personal identifiable information. These particular applications that we use in our computer systems, as consumers, we trust that the manufacturers have the best systems possible in order to protect us from these sort of threats. These manufacturers are doing their best, but folks, hackers are looking for vulnerabilities under every turn or every rock, if you would, within our system, our computer systems, to find a way to get into our information. So manufacturers are investing more and more money in trying to mitigate and defend our data assets. Here's an interview we're going to talk to the president of Microsoft's Brad Smith on what Microsoft is doing. Folks, they are investing over $20 billion against this type of cyber attacks. Roll the video.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Our next guest's new book provides rare, fresh insights into one of the biggest cyber attacks of recent times and what companies and governments should do to prevent them. I want to welcome Microsoft's president, Brad Smith, to the program. Brad, it's great to see you this morning. The paperback version of your best-selling book, Tools and Weapons, The Promise and the Peril of the Digital Age, is out today with a new chapter that goes inside Microsoft's investigation into the 2020 SolarWinds cyber attack. And we want to talk to you about that and so much more this morning, Brad. Take us inside that SolarWinds attack, but also let's just talk more broadly even about what's happening in the cybersecurity realm. You've committed to spend an enormous amount of money on this, as have so many other tech companies, and yet it continues to be perhaps the prevailing issue for everybody.
Well, thank you, Andrew, and it's great, of course, to be with you. And we did take people in this new chapter in our book into what happened with SolarWinds, and I think what it reflects is two things. First, the sophistication of cyber attacks continues to grow. What we saw in the SolarWinds attack, what we've seen in some ransomware and other attacks in the months since, really confirms that in so many ways. It really requires all of us to do more, to step up. As a company, as you said, Microsoft just committed to spend more than $20 billion over the next 5 years on security-related activities. But this is more than an issue for the tech sector. That's why the White House brought people together just a couple of weeks ago. We're all going to need to share information about what's happening. I think it speaks to us on a week like this when we're reflecting on even 9/11. One of the points we make in the book is that one of the conclusions of the 9/11 Commission is very relevant to this. Because as the Commission said, there'd been a real failure of strategic intelligence. People had been sharing information only on a need-to-know basis. They needed to create a culture around the need to share. And that's what we need to do here, too.
Brad, who should pay? I think that's one of the biggest issues, which is, should corporations be paying? Should you be paying? I mean, you're going to pay $20 billion to work on this software. People, obviously, you sell the software, so that's important. But should the government be paying?
Well, I think that in many ways it starts with those of us who create the technology products. We need to spend more, we need to invest more, and we are and we will. We need to build in more security protection into our products. But there's a lot of additional services that in effect make up what is needed to have a secure IT ecosystem. Just like we have monitoring services for office buildings and homes in case someone breaks in. There is that kind of ongoing need for services to protect cybersecurity. And in that sense, just as people pay for those services for their homes or offices, this becomes part of what they need to think about for keeping their IT secure. The government has one of the largest IT infrastructures in the world, so the government needs to invest as well. So whenever you see a problem that fundamentally is about criminal activity, we all need to do and invest more.
Have you been surprised over the years, and I will say that I have, that customers do not seem to pay for this with their own wallet, in which, or even jump with their own feet in terms of saying, you know what, there was a breach here, I'm no longer going to use that service. In fact, they seem to go back and use the same service over and over again. Why do you think that is? And as a result, I wonder whether the incentives are aligned.
In many ways, the incentives are not yet fully aligned. That's one of the reasons the insurance industry was present at the White House meeting 2 weeks ago. I think a lot of times insurance plays a role in aligning economic incentives across the economy, and that hasn't yet happened here. But I think there's some other problems as well. I think we have a real shortage. We've documented a shortage of cybersecurity professionals across the economy. Many businesses don't have the people that they need either to implement the protections they in some cases are already paying for, or just to provide the advice that the leaders of organizations also require. So I think that really is part of the problem that we also need to address.
As you can see, folks, the interview with Brad Smith from Microsoft definitely shows that companies like Microsoft are investing lots of money in their infrastructure, in their hardware and software to make sure they can combat against these type of cyber attacks. But like Brad mentioned, it has to be a combination of government and businesses working together in order to protect us and protect our needs from these cyber attacks. We all must do our parts in order to mitigate these type of attacks. And folks, you can do yours as well. One of them you can do by sponsoring our show here at CyberSecurity Awareness TV, which you can find us at patreon.com/Mac Jackson Jr. We'll be right back after these messages.
You can help limit the damage from identity theft with some quick responses. Placing a fraud alert on your credit reports, filing a complaint with the FTC, and then filing a police report. Taking these steps will give you some important tools to deal with other problems that may come up, like charges you didn't authorize on your credit card, phone, or utility bills, like ATM withdrawals or debit card purchases you didn't approve, like getting a letter from the IRS saying someone has filed for a tax refund in your name. Keep records of your calls and copies of documents. If these problems do come up later, you'll have the necessary tools close at hand. For more tips and tools on dealing with identity theft, visit ftc.gov/ID theft. That's ftc.gov/ID theft.
Hi folks, welcome back to Technology Review. Hey, there's another video I'd like to show you as well regarding how manufacturers and cybersecurity companies are doing to mitigate the damages of these type of cyber attacks. It has to do with transferring risk. And what this means, folks, is when your computer system you have currently, you transfer your risk of your email management and your database management to another third party. And that third party we call the cloud. Basically means, folks, someone else's computer system. There's a company that has invested in cloud storage and making sure that they have the best programmers and the best equipment that the money can buy in order to protect our data and information. I'd like to have you guys take a look at this video clip I have from Matt Prince from Cloudflare, discusses how his company, what they have done to protect our infrastructure and cybersecurity. Roll the clip.
Cloudflare have been on a tear over the past year, up 170%, really, since going public in 2019. But the stock is seeing a drop over the past week amid broader market sell-off concerns and a downgrade from Oppenheimer. The cybersecurity firm recently announcing a new offering for its customers on email protection. Joining us now in an exclusive interview is Cloudflare CEO Matthew Prince. Matthew, welcome to the show. It does feel like emails have been ripe for scams and phishing and all sorts of bad stuff for a while. Why now are you moving into it?
You know, I think the email is often the vector where bad guys are getting into corporations. And it was the one area in network security where Cloudflare didn't have an offering. And so I think what we realized was that there was a big opportunity for us to provide a new level of service regardless of what email provider and email host a company is using. And so it made just a ton of sense for us to enter the space, and we're excited to bring all of our technology to help people better protect their organizations from the sorts of threats that come by email.
How bad is it right now when it comes to some of those email threats, say, versus when we were in COVID and there were so many cyber attacks going on because everybody was working from home and digitally?
You know, I think that if you look behind the scenes, whether at any of the attacks that are making headlines, oftentimes, and in fact, the majority of the time, the initial source of how attackers got into organizations was through an email. We saw a record number of phishing attacks, which are the types of attacks that are targeting people trying to steal their information at the beginning of this year. And so it is a source where attacks come into organizations. And we realize that through the total approach that we have to providing network security to our clients, adding email just made a ton of sense. And we're looking forward to helping our clients be safer online and reading about fewer cyber attacks in the news.
Matthew, are your services really for the real serious coders within the kind of computer world, or for big corporate clients, or are you offering retail services to the average computer user like me as well?
Yeah, so we provide services to everything from individual developers up through some of the largest corporations and businesses around the world. And I think one of the things that makes Cloudflare unique is because of the fact that we service from the very small end to the very large end. This isn't something, though, for individual consumers. In those cases, we don't have a product right now to protect their email inboxes, but we're always thinking about how we can continue to use our network to serve a larger and larger audience and continue on our mission of helping build a better internet.
So with that in mind, Matthew, what's your read right now on enterprise spending on your products, on cybersecurity, and specifically which industries are spending the most?
Sure. So I think that, throughout the last 18 months, as we've lived through COVID, we've seen companies turn to the internet more and more. And so that has been, both an exciting time for us as a company where people are relying on the internet more and they need to make sure that it performs the way it should. But it's also been a struggle because I think a lot of IT organizations have really kind of locked themselves down and said we're all hands on deck just to stay online and make sure that our teams stay productive. What I think has changed as it now seems like we're coming out sort of the other end of COVID is that IT organizations are starting to think about how can they redesign their networks and take advantage of cloud technologies like Cloudflare in order to make sure that if we have to go through something like this again, or if we continue to support hybrid work environments, that they're not relying on sort of the old sort of on-premise hardware boxes of the past. And so I think those have been trends that have been helpful for our business. I think that IT organizations are starting to pick up the phone again And a lot of people are coming to us to choose our solutions and really modernize how they think about their network infrastructure and cybersecurity needs.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to CyberSecurity Awareness TV. I'm your host, Mac Jackson Jr. In this segment, we have an interview with Kevin Mitnick discussing global ransomware attacks. Now, again, this interview was brought to us by CNBC, and we're replaying it for our show. And boy, folks, it is really, really good. You see, folks, global attacks from ransomware are on the rise. Hackers from around the world are trying their best to get information from our computer systems by using things like spear phishing, ransomware attacks, even attacking MSPs. What is an MSP? A managed service provider. Now, these are companies, MSPs, these managed service providers. What they do, that is to take care of all of your computer systems within your organizations. In other words, all of your network drives or your end users, these MSPs will monitor them for you. Therefore, the MSP companies have thousands upon thousands of companies that they are maintaining their passwords and users. Therefore, if a hacker was able to attack an MSP company, they'll have access to thousands of businesses, their emails, and access to data and information. So in this interview, Kevin talks about how these MSPs have been attacked, and one of the largest attacks that happened recently here this year, that an MSP was attacked and over 1,500 different businesses had their information stolen, compromised by the cyber attack. You'll see it in this video.
He made the FBI's 10 most wanted list. He was twice convicted and was jailed for cyber crimes. But now he's gone from the dark side to helping companies combat attacks. He's currently the CEO of cybersecurity consulting firm Mitnick Security. Kevin, welcome back. We are delighted to have you with us. Explain to those who haven't been following this story over the weekend what went on here, why Cassia is at the center, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, why they are at the center of it, and why it has metastasized as broadly as it has.
Well, first of all, Revel, it's a ransomware group, and they have affiliates. So this is called ransomware as a service. What that means is they're not actually deploying the malicious code. It's these affiliates, these people that are using this ransomware as a service platform. And what they did is one of these affiliates found on authentication bypass. What that means is they found a vulnerability in Kaseya's platform that allowed them to log in without having any credentials. And then they did a super sophisticated attack where they were able to interfere with the update process. So during the update process, it would actually deploy the malicious code, which turned out to be the ransomware. When I was reading about this earlier today, it was super sophisticated. This isn't the type of stuff that we remember when your computer would be locked and you'd have to pay $300 to $400 of Bitcoin to get this back. This is a sophisticated tradecraft. This is almost to the level of nation state, but it could be these Russian gangs. Don't forget, these gangs are making tens of millions of dollars when they're compromising these victims and they're actually paying out these ransoms. So they could hire the best security researchers. Maybe they're doing it as shell companies. So the researchers don't even realize they're working for the bad guys. And when they develop these tools, like what we call zero-day exploit. A zero-day exploit is a security hole, for example, in a product that the manufacturer doesn't know about, so they can't patch it. Well, in this particular case, the bad actors used a zero-day exploit to deploy a fake update. And what this update did is it deployed the ransomware in these Kaseya devices. And this was actually pushed down to the customers, because their customers were MSPs. And it was actually pushed down to those customers. And I believe earlier on the show, you mentioned about 1,500. That's an amplification attack, because what these bad actors are doing is rather than targeting one company at a time, they're targeting MSPs, because now those MSPs have customers, and so it amplifies the attack, and they're able to monetize this malware in a more expedient way.
MSP is what again?
Managed service provider.
Managed service provider. So you say Revel, I said Revel. I'm not sure which is more appropriate here. I'm going to take your word that the proper way to pronounce it is Revel, but it feels pretty Revel to me. You said this is a super sophisticated attack. That's my question. What makes it so super sophisticated? And we are calling it the largest such attack of its kind. What makes it the largest? Is it that metastasis out over maybe 1,500 companies? Is it the size of the ransom? What is it? What makes it so big in scale?
It was the tradecraft they used to evade any antivirus tools, the tradecraft that they found a zero-day exploit to actually carry out this attack. It was more of the technical under the hood of how it was working was, the super sophisticated part of this. The ransom going up, I think that's pretty much what we're seeing as these ransomware attacks grow. We're seeing the numbers rise. And it's already been common knowledge that these bad actors are going after MSPs. That's nothing new. So the amounts rising is not really interesting. It's really how they went about deploying the malware.
Are we losing the cyber war?
Well, it looks like the bad actors are ahead. I mean, unfortunately, and it's because a lot of companies think, well, if we enable very strong passwords or we, add two-factor authentication, that's really going to stop ransomware attacks. Now, of course, that's a good thing to do, but the bad guys aren't going through the front door. They're going through the back door. They're finding vulnerabilities like they did in this Kaseya appliance and getting in that way to deploy the malicious code. So companies have to do much better at protecting their organization. Right. And of course, a lot of this stuff is where it's encrypting their files. So what businesses ought to do is look for appliances that create like a logical air gap. Because a lot of these backups, in a business environment are done in such a way if a bad actor breaks into your company, they're able to manipulate and damage those backups.
Pretty amazing, folks. We thank again MSNBC and also Kevin Mitnick for that particular interview. Earlier again this year, there was a ransomware attack that affected hackers and businesses around the world. These hackers wanted over $70 million in ransomware before they released the data back to the companies. Absolutely brazen. And folks, these ransomware cyber hackers, they even have a customer service 800 number where you can call and try to negotiate your ransom. It's been crazy. They've affected companies, big and small, including nonprofit organizations that can't afford to have these type of ransomware threats on their businesses, and they had to pay money in order to get their data back. We have a clip here to show you about this type of attack and what has been done for it. Roll this clip.
Hackers targeted a U.S. information technology firm over the 4th of July weekend in one of the biggest cyber attacks in history. Up to 1,500 businesses could have been affected, and the group responsible is demanding $70 million in ransom. NBC News reporter Kevin Collier joins us now for more. Kevin, good morning. So what do we know about this group, and is their goal just making money, and do we know anything about the ransom being paid?
Hey, morning. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the most prolific and longest running of the many Russian-affiliated ransomware gangs that have just been relentlessly targeting American businesses for more than a year now. And they're at the center of an incredibly thorny geopolitical problem, but really, we've never seen any evidence that they're motivated by anything other than money. It's organized crime by any meaningful definition. It just happens to be done with computers, and they've gotten quite good at it. We believe that some places have paid the ransom, but they've hit so many different targets that there's no comprehensive look at any of the payments.
Yeah. And I mean, Kevin, I hate to put it this way, but it feels like we're getting used to hearing about these type of attacks by now. What makes this particular one so unprecedented?
So usually these guys, other ransomware gangs, will spend a little bit of time targeting a single organization, like a hospital chain or a school or a business, and they'll hack it and they'll encrypt its computers, they'll steal the files, and they'll demand a ransom. But this one was different and much more sophisticated because it's kind of like they went for a supply chain attack, and it exploits how interconnected the internet makes us. So the hackers somehow, we don't have any idea how, they obtained an unpublished vulnerability for an IT services company called Kaseya. Now, the corporate world is very heavily tied up in companies that do this or that for other companies. So Kaseya makes software for other companies that in turn help other businesses go online. So the hackers weren't just able to infect Kaseya's computers, but Kaseya's customers.
Right. Wow. Now, President Biden says he's devoting all available resources to investigate this attack. Do we know what this investigation will look like? And also, has he contacted President Putin at all, since we know this group is Russia connected? And we know that was a big thing that came up at the Biden-Putin summit that we just saw a couple weeks ago, the fact that this country harbors these types of cyber criminals.
Yeah, he said Sunday that he had not called Putin about this, and the Kremlin said yesterday that they had not heard from the U.S. about this. But whatever happens, this is a ridiculously hard problem. The only easy solution would be if Russia started arresting its own cyber criminals that attack the U.S. and other international targets. And Russia simply has not shown any indication that it wants to start doing that. You know, the U.S. has to play catch up in defense in terms of remediating this attack and stop it from happening again, and in offense. And we're really far behind in both.
All right, Kevin, fascinating and really quite disturbing. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.
Boy, folks, as you can see from these videos, our best defense against cyber attacks is through education. Train your staff is the first step to mitigate these type of cyber attacks. And folks, if you'd like to support our channel here, you can find us at patreon.com/Mac Jackson Jr. We'll be back after these messages.
Identity theft happens. It's an unfortunate fact of modern life. But there are certain steps you can take to help keep your personal information from falling into the wrong hands. Every day you do things to protect what's most important to you. And you know what? You do them almost automatically. Routine things like looking both ways before you cross, brushing your teeth, and buckling your seatbelt. Another routine to get into is keeping tabs on your identity and personal information. Here are 5 easy ways you can do it. Read your credit card and bank statements carefully and often. Know your payment due dates. If a bill doesn't show up when you expect it, look into it. Read the statements from your health insurance plan. Make sure the claims paid match the care you got. Shred any documents with personal and financial information. Review each of your 3 credit reports at least once a year. It's easy and it's free. And before you know it, protecting your personal information can be as routine as locking your doors at night. For more tips and tools on dealing with identity theft, visit ftc.gov/ID theft. That's ftc.gov/ID theft.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to CyberSecurity Awareness TV. I'm your host, Mac Jackson Jr. In this segment, we're talking about cybersecurity tips that you can use to protect yourself from these type of cyber attacks. Folks, when it comes to cyber attacks, as I've always stated on this show, the bad guys only have to get it right once, while we have to protect ourselves every time. That's the first thing. Folks, some of the things you can do to protect yourself: use multi-factor authentication. Again, what does that mean? For example, in your smartphone, when you are trying to log onto a website, the manufacturer of the website will send you an authentication code to one of your devices, like your smartphone or an email. Definitely use the code that they've given you to enter into your particular website. In other words, there's 2 factors. The first factor is your user ID and your password, and the second factor is the code they will send you on one of your devices, such as your smartphone. These are things that we're doing right now in order to mitigate these attacks from people who are trying to log in using your user ID and password without your knowing. Now, I mentioned the term password, and yes, folks, we're going to say it again. Your password is the first line of defense. Make sure you have a password that is created using a passphrase. That's something that you and your family can understand that the hackers cannot. Now, it is stated that you should have a password that's about 11 to 12 characters long. Now, that could be daunting, trying to remember all of that. A lot of us will write them down on a piece of paper, not good at either, or they'd store them as a spreadsheet on their computer system, a spreadsheet file, folks, listing all of your passwords and websites you visit. Again, not a good idea, because what you've done, you actually created currency. That's right, folks. That blank spreadsheet that had nothing there is worth nothing. Once you enter your website and your user ID and a password, you've created currency that file can be sold to a hacker in the darknet for thousands of dollars. In fact, true. So what should you do? Well, you should have a password management system. What is that? Password management system, folks, what it does, it's a software program that integrates within your browser of your laptop or desktop computer system, and it will encrypt and store all of your passwords that you use within your browser and other applications. You can also have the same password management system on your phone as well. Programs that I would suggest taking a look at, such as LastPass. LastPass is one of them that I would recommend having on your system to utilize. What LastPass will do, it will take all of your passwords and encrypt them. Not even LastPass themselves will be able to help you get those passwords back because they won't even know them. It limits their liability. All you have to remember is one user ID and one password. That's all you have to remember. And all of your thousands of websites that you visit will be encrypted for you. Also, LastPass will give you the capability of changing your passwords. That's right, folks. We should change our passwords at least every 60 to 90 days. Again, another daunting task that could be done if you're trying this manually. You should have a system to do it, and having programs like LastPass will be able to give you that capability of changing your passwords whenever you need to. So again, folks, LastPass.com for your password management systems. And if you have any questions about how to utilize it or want to find out more information, contact me. I'll give you my phone number again. It's 702-868-0808, and I'll be able to walk you through and give you some advice on ways you can protect your passwords. Again, folks, our first line of defense is our passwords. Secondly, what else should we do? Well, we should make sure that you have VPNs. I say it again, folks, and I'll stress it almost every week to you guys. Virtual private networks. That's right, folks. On your smartphones, your laptops, when you're out in a restaurant or a coffee shop and you want to access your information on the internet, or you're visiting a friend and they give you access to their computer system from their home. You need to make sure you have a virtual private network on your smart device and on your laptop. This will give you an extra layer of protection where the bad guys can't see your user ID and your passwords to get into your system. These are just some of the things we could do. We talk about a lot of this on our show every week, and these will be able to give you protection against these type of cyber hackers. But there's a couple of things I like to talk about as well, and one of them is emails that I've been getting from viewers like you requesting information on what they can do to protect themselves. One of them I got recently here talked about fake collection agency calls. Yes, folks, fake collection agencies. So let's say that you have a legitimate collection bill that you owe to a collection agency. Could be health bill, a financial bill, what have you. Well, folks, there have been cyber attacks at these collection agencies, and this is what the hackers would do. If they connect or hack into a collection agency and acquire the names and address and phone numbers of people who owe money to the collection agencies, these hackers would sell this data to other bad guys, which in turn will call the actual victims, stating that their collection account is now being transferred or sold to another collection agency, ABC Fake Collection, for example, and that you should pay your money immediately to this new collection agency. They will ask for your Visa, MasterCard, or sometimes they'll even say to you that you can pay for it in cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. Right there is a red flag. If that ever happens to you, immediately hang up and do not do any business with them at all. Contact your collection agency if you do, in fact, have a collection debt that is owed. Contact them and negotiate with them directly. Never use these companies, especially if they call you and say to you this particular quote: "This call is being recorded." Now, most of us, when we hear that, that sounds very authentic. We're thinking, wow, this must be a very authorized call. But folks, it's a way that hackers are using social engineering to get past our judgment and understanding of what's going on and to give information. They then will say, you need to verify your last 4 digits of your social security number. Well, if they called you, then they must already have it. Why are they asking you to verify it? I would say to them, let me call you back. I have your number, and I will call you back. And if you don't have the number, have the collection agency send you a letter stating what your loan is and what your value of your loan is to make sure this bill is legitimate. And if it's still not legitimate, contact your attorney immediately. If you have any questions about how to contact your attorney and what to ask him, you can contact me as well, and I will give you some references and way to you can do that as well. Again, my phone number is 702-868-0808. And folks, if you have any questions like this you'd like to send me, again, my name is Mac Jackson from CyberSecurity Awareness TV. You could find me again at MacJacksonJr.com. That's MacJacksonJr.com as well for any of your questions and needs about cybersecurity. Also, we're on Facebook. We're on all Twitter and social media applications. You can find us out there, information on cybersecurity. Remember to share, like, and subscribe and repost to everybody you might know. Thank you again, folks. Thank you for this week, and we'll be back for you next week, folks, with another episode of Cybersecurity Awareness TV. Thank you.